Beam is about being able to take 3D experiences and dynamically change them when they're live. So at the moment people can create 3D environments, but actually it takes developers to do that. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and they're really hard to change. So the idea with Beam is you create it once, you use the developers to create the environment just the once, and then you kind of put invisible placeholders in there, and then somebody as a content manager can come and change that later on. So just like you might do with a WordPress with a website, you could do that in 3D environments with Beam.
To show off what Beam can power, we created a pub game called Castle of Cans in augmented reality. In it, you can take shots at cans positioned in and around a castle that you place on a flat surface. The idea is that you can go to a pub and open Castle of Cans, get the pub's castle layout and leaderboard, and compete to be the top scorer there. So far, normal game development. Adding Beam into the mix, we can allow pub owners to change cans and metadata that get served for their pub instantly and easily. So first, we pick a pub. In this case, we're going to pick the Rocket Makers pub. We need to find a piece of flat terrain on which to place the castle. So here we have this lovely table. We can see that the castle appears with all the cans inside it. We can shoot those cans and gain some points. The further away we are, the more points we get. Trying to avoid the red bottles, if possible. If we zoom in a little bit, we can walk up to the cans, have a look, and we can see the little Rocket Makers branding. Now, if we wanted to change those cans up for something else, Beam allows us to do that really easily in just a few clicks using the web interface. So let's jump into the web interface now and have a look at how that goes. Now in the Beam backend, all we need to do is go to the Rocket Makers content layer, scroll down to content, change these Rocket Makers cans up for TechSpark and Tech for Good, hit the save button, and then we're done. Now, when we return to the Castle of Cans app and hit Rocket Makers, we've not had to update the app or preload anything. We build the castle terrain and we can see that the Rocket Makers cans have been replaced with TechSpark and Tech for Good ones.
There's a long story behind Beam, but so it starts with an amazing conference that was run out of Bristol called the VR World Congress that Bristol VR Labs set up. We wanted to support that. This was back in 2017. So I came back and told the guys here that we'd got an exhibition stand that we'd paid for, that in 5 weeks' time we needed something that wouldn't embarrass us next to a load of really cool VR content. So we beavered away, created something which was the first prototype of Beam, and then after the next sort of 3 years we've now got a product that is really sort of tying that together. And it was a great environment to show it. People gave us loads of great feedback, really helped us sort of set it on the course that it is now.
I mean, a virtual environment is a 3D space with some social element. It could be through a computer interface just on a screen, it could be in virtual reality, it could even be like an AR app. Usually when we talk about virtual environments, we're kind of referring to an online space where you can have some kind of social element with other people involved there too. So your VR chats, that kind of thing where you can strap on a headset and go and talk to your friends and create yourself a virtual avatar. That's an example of like a solid virtual space.
Some of the big companies like Facebook and Epic and Microsoft are really taking it seriously. So Facebook even changing their name around the metaverse that they're figuring it's so important. That kind of big picture where people are seeing it being ultimately the future of the internet as we know it, being a really open space where you can go into one environment, you can then have an experience, you can then move seamlessly into another environment, and all of that being something that is a much bigger experience and a more perhaps realistic spatial experience than you get on the 2D web pages today.
I think it's the interesting in the kind of the level of engagement that we see younger people having in 3D worlds is a lot different. So as they kind of mature, it's likely to become more and more of a thing. You can kind of see that now happening already with like the kind of prevalence of Fortnite amongst the youth of today. But so yeah, I mean, we're kind of seeing that it looks like the market for this kind of thing is going to grow exponentially over the next kind of 10 years, and I think it would be silly to not think about that at least or consider it. I think eventually it's really hard to understand, to know exactly where it's going to end up, right? Everything is in flux at the moment. We don't know whether, I mean, even when you say the word metaverse, it can mean a lot of things to a lot of different
people, right? So how that develops over time, no one really knows yet. But where I think what we're seeing at the moment is like a push towards decentralization, things like blockchain and NFTs, that kind of thing. They're providing a more decentralized platform for things. So what I think we're likely to see is a bit more kind of interoperability between different virtual spaces and things online, and a lot of a smoother transition between one and the other. And that will, I think, lead to a greater uptake in terms of people using it and players in the virtual world, in the metaverse, I should say.
I think it's worth remembering that people have been talking about virtual reality for, since I started doing these things back in the 90s or whatever, and it's always been that little bit further ahead, people waiting for it. But I think the technology is getting to the point now that it's much, much better. You're seeing things shrinking, and you can imagine that you won't have these huge goggles that you have to deal with. It'll be a pair of glasses or the equivalent there. You're seeing things like 5G coming along as well, where you get this kind of low latency, and you can move a lot of information very quickly into spaces. And I think so it's that combination of technology and, frankly, people wanting to move to that next generation. If the Facebooks are seeing this, then a lot of people will follow, and I think we'll see an acceleration that perhaps we haven't in the last 20 years. I mean, the tech and digital sector in the Southwest is known as sort of second to London. It's a great place to be. We've been involved in it for the last 14 so years ourselves, and it's a great environment to be at. So we also have loads of great companies that are really pushing forward in this space. So people like Ultraleap is a great example, where they've raised a good amount of money. They have some great products, and you can start to see that that's been pushed forward. So we're in an environment where there's lots of other people around who can help. I think it's an open, encouraging community, and TechSpark encourages all of that kind of people engaging in the community and helping each other. And Beam is our taker, maybe where we think some of the future's going, and how we can prototype and trial that stuff now. And I think it's just an example of one of many companies in this region that are just trying to push boundaries a bit, and it's a great place to be.
Yeah, I think as a kind of mission statement, we've got we want to be democratizing the metaverse. Essentially, we want to make sure that it's not just a small amount of people at the top that can do it. So it's kind of like core to our mission, I think, in terms of Beam, that we enable companies and people that maybe aren't those giant big corporations to actually get their foot in the door. I think that's quite important to us too.